He didn't break in. He didn't need to. In 1885, in Austin, Texas, most people didn't lock their doors, which meant that at night, he could walk straight in. No noise, no warning, and by the time anyone realised that he was there, it was already too late. Before Jack the Ripper terrified London, another killer was already stalking the night. And almost nobody remembers him. In the shadows of history, some crimes are remembered. Others are buried. This is Bone Gavel, where the forgotten cases are brought back to life. In the 1880s, in Austin, Texas, it was a city that was trying to modernize. The population in Austin was growing rapidly, businesses were constantly expanding, and the political leaders in Austin wanted the city to become a symbol of progress in Texas. But beneath all of that growth sat massive inequality. Most major wealthy houses in Austin employed servant girls. These were young women who cooked meals, cleaned houses, looked after children, washed everybody's clothes. Many of these women were young black women, living in a society that was still shaped by the aftermath of slavery. Most of these were working really long hours. They were either sleeping in an isolated room or a little shed in the back of the house. They were always away from the main family. This meant that these women were vulnerable. And in late 1884, someone began targeting them. On the night of December the 29th in 1884, a young servant girl, Molly Smith, spent the night dancing and having fun with her friends. Nothing seemed unusual at all. Sometime after midnight, she returned home. When she returned back to her home, in the darkness, she was attacked. The next morning, her body was discovered right next to the residence that she worked. Molly's injuries were horrific. Her head was beaten badly. She had cases of multiple blunt force trauma. The police had concluded that this had probably been done with an axe, some sort of blunt object. Her scalp had been badly torn, and there were signs that she had been dragged after the attack. Some other reports from the time suggest that there may have also been some sharp force injuries, but records from the investigation were inconsistent. This inconsistency would become a reoccurring issue throughout the case. Police had searched for suspects but could not find anybody. They thought initially that this was just an isolated incident, but it soon became clear that Austin's nightmare had only just begun. More than 4 months had passed since Molly's murder, and the killer struck again. On May the 7th, 1885, 17-year-old Eliza Shelley was found dead. Again, like Molly Smith, she had been attacked in her sleep. Again, Eliza had incurred repeated blows to the head, forceful blows. This showed extreme violence and aggression. Police also found potential stab wounds and cuts to Eliza's body, suggesting that maybe more than one weapon had been used in the attack. And again, just like Molly Smith, robbery did not seem to be a motive. The violence itself seemed to be the purpose for these murders, and the residents in Austin soon began to realise that there was something far more frightening than just an ordinary crime happening. Less than 3 weeks later, the killer attacked again. However, this time, the victim somehow survived. On the 23rd of May 1885, Irene Cross was assaulted while she was asleep in her home. She suffered catastrophic injuries to her head after she was struck multiple times with again what police believed to be a heavy blunt weapon. But again, with Irene again, there were some reports of sharp force trauma or cuts, but again these reports were inconsistent. Miraculously, Irene survived, and because she survived, the city began to realise that there was a pattern. Someone was entering people's homes at night. They were attacking them while they slept. Fear began to spread across Austin. Men formed armed patrols, families barricaded their doors, but the attacks still continued. By the end of summer in 1885, Austin was already uneasy. Then came the 30th of August, the night that the fear really exploded. That evening, 14-year-old Gracie Vance was attacked in the home that she worked in. At some point during the night, the killer had entered without anybody hearing him. Gracie was attacked with overwhelming violence. It was the same thing. Police again believed that an axe or a similarly heavy weapon was used to strike her repeatedly in the head. Her body was then dragged outside into the yard. When the neighbours found her, she was still alive, but barely. Her skull had been severely fractured, and she was drifting in and out of consciousness, while people around her were desperately trying to help. Gracie died not long afterwards. Austin was absolutely horrified. Gracie was only 14 years old. But before the sun would rise, the killer struck again. Elsewhere in the city, 11-year-old Mary Ramey was attacked. Exactly the same as the previous victims, Mary was struck repeatedly in the head. Another victim that was in the home at the time of the attack, Orange, Washington, survived despite having major injuries. 2 attacks, 2 locations, 1 night. Now there was no doubt. Austin was being hunted by somebody incredibly confident. Newspapers intensified their coverage. Citizens went out and armed themselves. Night patrols were marching around the streets carrying rifles and lanterns. But the killings still continued. Up until this point, the majority of the victims had been black servant women. And despite the complete brutality of the murders, public reaction had been fairly limited. That all changed on the 28th of September 1885. 30-year-old Eula Phillips was attacked in her home. The violence and the pattern was undeniable. Reports had described severe injuries to her head and face, and again some reports included some stab wounds. Eula's husband, James Phillips, awoke during the attack and attempted to fight the attacker away. He was beaten badly, but he survived. But the attacker escaped once again. This attack transformed public fear overnight. For the first time, wealthy white residents felt directly threatened. The city entered full panic. Then came Christmas Eve, a night that Austin would never forget. The killer attacked the Hancock home. 44-year-old Susan Hancock was attacked in her bed. Her 6-year-old daughter, Alma Hancock, was also killed during the attack. This violence had stunned even the most experienced investigators. Again, there were the same patterns as all the previous murders. But the murder of a child had stunned the city of Austin. The city was emotionally shattered. The killer struck again in the same night. His timing felt deliberate, almost calculated. It was as though the killer understood how fear would spread across the city. After the events of Christmas Eve, Austin became paralyzed. People stayed awake throughout the night, listening for any little noise that they could hear outside. Businesses were closing earlier than normal. Churches were holding prayer gatherings. No one felt safe anymore. Across all of the murders, the similarities were unmistakable. The killer entered quietly, normally through unsecured windows or unlocked doors. The victims were all attacked while they were sleeping. There was always massive blunt force injury to the head and the face. There are also the conflicting reports of stab wounds, suggesting that the killer may have used two weapons. And in multiple of these cases, the bodies were dragged outside. Some investigators even believed that the killer may have staged parts of the crime scenes. Whether true or not, the violence felt deeply personal. In early 1886, suspicion focused on a man named Nathan Elgin. Police believed that he matched the witness descriptions and may have possessed the physical strength to carry out the attacks. When officers attempted to arrest him, Elgin fled. Police shot and killed him, and after his death, the murders stopped. For many people, that was enough. Case closed. But police never found any evidence that directly linked Elgin to the murders. There was no confession, there was no witness, and there was no certainty. And because of that, the mystery survived. Then just 2 years later, the Whitechapel murders began in London. Women attacked at night, extreme violence, vulnerable victims, and at the centre of it all, Jack the Ripper. Some historians believe the similarities are a coincidence. Others believe something far more disturbing, that the killer in Austin did not stop. He simply moved. The Servant Girl Annihilator was never officially identified. The murders ended, but the fear in Austin never truly disappeared, because somewhere in the darkness of history, the truth still awaits.